Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another week of BlastCast. Once again, with me is my bastion of common sense, Lightning Dragon. And of course, as everyone knows by now, 2.62 is now live. And there was kind of an interesting bug where for a few hours after 2.6.2 came out, that some people who had the Buccaneer, myself included, were unable to access that ship in the ship lineup. And sent in a ticket that was resolved relatively quickly since there were a lot of people that were having that issue. Of course, as with any update week, you have that kind of situation where basically everything's kind of just shot out there and there's really not too much to talk about. We'll go into some of the things that kind of came into our mind watching the show. There was no production schedule update, and Happy Hour was more of a reminiscing about Wing Commander Privateer, which was a great game, and I played a lot of it during my my teenage years. But overall, if you're familiar with Privateer, you're really not missing too much. It was an okay stream. It just wasn't anything really related to Star Citizen. Around the Verse had a few different topics that they covered. One of the things that they showed was the updated personal gun models and the new ship weapon modularity that is made to allow players to add parts and upgrade the weapon. And I think this is kind of an important thing, adding those parts to the weapon, because if they add new systems or if they add new, for example, like the idea that I proposed, the signature tracking gimbals, one of the ideas of the add-on was you add on these parts that allow it to track different kinds of signals. And that's just an example. That's just an idea that I threw out, but I'm saying that anything that they would come up with would definitely, that would be beneficial. I'm not sure, though. When I looked at the pictures initially, it almost looked like that you could upgrade the sizes through this method. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just something else, that some other way you upgrade that. But it almost looked like they turned a 1 into a 2 or 2 into a 3. It was kind of weird. Did you see those pictures at all, Lightning?
I remember seeing them, but I didn't feel that they were upgrading from 1 to 2. It just felt like they were keeping in line with the aesthetics of the manufacturer of gun type. So, like, this is a size 2. It has additional, like, scope or something on it. Or it's got a larger rear end area for, I don't know, capacitors or something.
Well, it's kind of weird because it looked like they had like this the central core, like the core of the gun, and then like they're adding like, okay, well now we're going to add more barrels or bigger barrels onto the same core, and now the gun looks a little bit different or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I'm interested to see exactly how this works. If this is just a modification of the core weapon at that size, or if it's like this. What was that? There was I forget what it was, a movie or a TV show where the guy started off with a really small gun and he kept adding parts to it. And by the time he got done, he was like carrying like this gigantic rifle, and it started off like as a pistol.
That sounds like an anime Black Rock shooter.
I've never even heard of that. That's definitely not what. If it's in that, that's fine. I've never even heard of that anime before. So, but yeah, I remember watching this show. I think it was a live action one. It just started off with a pistol, and they're adding on it. If anyone knows, let me know, because I can't remember what movie that's from, or maybe TV show. And of course, they showed off the planet grids. And looking at those planet grids, that was surreal to me. I don't know if any of you have ever watched the movie The Black Hole, a very old movie now. Disney put out, kind of dark for a Disney movie, actually. And they showed this grid in the beginning, and you kind of zoom into the black hole. And looking at all those boxes, the size, the amount, and the scale of all the boxes and all the zones and sectors that go into a planet was just surreal. And the more they drilled down into it, like here's a row of trees that's in a box, and then you get closer and those trees are in boxes. And one of the things I did like, and it was unfortunate that the base itself was covered in tons of boxes, but you could actually see kind of a new base in the last few seconds of it. Not sure what planet, not sure what the name of that base is, but you could barely even see it. As I said, lots of little green boxes all over it. But it was still kind of cool seeing another base being developed. And they showed off planetary effects. They showed a mild sandstorm and heat waves, so we're up a little bit more. They showed off some more of the planets being done here, and I still don't know if they're going to be doing, because remember that one. You remember that one happy hour they had, Lightning, where the guy kind of accidentally said, it was the one where they had the devs talking about the flight model, and they kind of said 2.7 by accident or something like that, and we kind of,
yeah, maybe it was a misslip and they meant 2.6 or whatever,
or something like that, And I don't know. As I said, we don't know anything. We can, it's still, according to everything that's going on, 3.0 is the next update to the game. But, I would be perfectly happy with, as I said, with a 2.7 coming out, just having the moons around Crusader just available. A few missions, a few bases, a few places to land, a couple fun places to go, and just at least let everyone see that the scope and scale, if 3.0 isn't completely ready to go. I mean, to me, that would make people, I think, feel a lot more confident about the direction the game's going. For those people who are kind of feeling a little bit more hesitant about how long things are taking. And of course, if you are hesitant about how long things are taking, then I would like to point you to Mass Effect Andromeda. Remember, games coming out quickly or games coming out on a schedule does not make a good game. And after watching that, my face is tired. Angry Joe had the best review on that. I swear that opening was worth its weight in gold. But yeah, they showed walking animations, how they're using a transitional grid. It's called parametric blending. And it's just kind of actually really smart. And as what it is that all the different types of walking, whether it's turning or walking with a
different speeds of walking,
different
as well.
speeds, different angles, how fast someone's turning, whether it's a straight line or it's a curve, the game dynamically changes how the character is moving. As what it does is these animations are referred to on a grid, and as it's moved along the grid, you can think of it kind of like the way that if you were to run a stick, like if you're flying in a ship, you have your center is 0. You're not moving, and as you pull the stick off to the right at very just a little, you end up with, so to speak, you go into that slow walking grid, moving off in this direction or moving this way. And as you pull the stick out further, you transition along that X and Y axis to transition into those different kinds of walks. And that's kind of the same thing. And in a sense, it really makes me think of how you create an interaction with game interfaces for controls in and of itself. And I think it's a pretty smart way to approach it. I like it. It'll be a lot more dynamic.
I believe this system will also work for players as well.
Yeah, I believe it will.
So it's not only is it going to, for example, the Squadron 42 problems they were having where they weren't really ready to show a lot of the Squadron 42 stuff because NPCs were walking into walls, or they'd walk halfway through their animation cycle and just turn around and be like, oh, well, I'm done. And some of this will probably directly feed into that, which, I mean, if people are excited for Squadron 42, that'll definitely help bring it up on its speed and pace that it's been going.
Yeah, and I remember that when they had after they had the CitizenCon, where they had shown the video about Squadron 42 and why it didn't get shown. When they're showing the problems with the AI pathing and how the AI was moving. This should hopefully resolve a lot of those issues. I'm really looking forward to some sort of more updated trailer or introduction to Squadron 42 this year. I'd like to see them at least show one mission, and hopefully by the end of the year, at least let us play test 3 missions. I don't expect the whole game to be out. I'm not in any rush. To me, the persistent universe is what I'm there for. But to me, I would like to be able to at least play the first 3 missions, and that way we can give feedback on the environments. I'd rather the community have that time to give that feedback before it goes as a finished product, as it gets shipped. Even
if, let's say, they are out of order missions, for example. So let's say you have a mission where you let's say you fly a transport ship. I don't know what military transport ship they have in the game off the top of my head, but you fly a transport ship, or you get flown and you have to do ground combat and recover this base. And then you have another mission where you're doing a fighter escort, and so you're going out there to blow up Vandul or whatever. And then you have a bombing mission where you're doing a bombing run on an attack. Those are some of the 3 core gameplay modes.
You just take scenarios.
It'll also address torpedo damage and things like that. It'll force them to update my Retaliator because I want that to be an option on the bombing run mission.
The Retaliator.
I'll never let it go. That's my baby.
Hey,
that's the ship I jumped in on.
I completely understand. I'm in the same boat with the Redeemer, but I really can't complain. I have a lot of other ships to fly, so But yeah, I totally get it. And of course, they showed off the main part of the show was the ship pipeline part 2. Of course, they were using the Buccaneer, and basically they were covering.
I think I fell asleep at that point.
Well, they were covering texturing, effects, sound, design, and of course damage. And so basically, I could go through it here a little bit, but to be honest with you, it'd probably be more efficient to go actually watch that part of Around the Verse if that's something that interests you. It was interesting, but they're going to do a way better job explaining all the technicalities than I'm ever going to do here. They went and showed the rocket pods that they're going to be letting us add on the ship. So basically, I'm pretty sure this is all for dead fire or dummy fire kind of rockets that you can add to ships. Though, I was kind of hoping that, we don't know, but size 1 missiles instead. Because I remember a long time ago when they showed the Gladiator, they had these weapon loadouts. They showed all these pods and things that you'd be able to add to it, to add a lot more missiles, make that thing just carry a metric ton of different kinds of missiles on it. And, in a game that has physics and things like that, I'd have no problems with that, because if someone had more weight on their ship handled worse, their ship had slower acceleration, I'd be perfectly fine with that. But it got me thinking when I was looking at that about the Buccaneer. Now, I may be wrong on this, but I remember back when they showed the concept art that basically there was a missile pod that was right underneath the main wing, connected to the body, kind of a triangular kind of shape. And of course, when the ship came out, right now, all you have is basically 2 missiles strapped between the engine and the body on the underside of the wing, which in my opinion is probably one of the worst places that you could actually stick those missiles. I would stick them on the outside of the wings and move those guns to the inside.
Well, I'm just trying to remember. I know they talked about having dumbfire missiles ages ago, but none of them are dumbfire, right?
Not yet, not that I'm aware of. I mean, I thought, like the size 1s were about as small as they were going to get. I was pretty certain that the size 1s were going to be fairly good at tracking, but fairly inefficient at doing any sort of real damage to enemy ships. They were just kind of like...
it sounds like to me that was probably the original plan, was like size 1 missiles would be closer to like World War II rockets. Basically, they're just dumbfire. They fire straight out. You want to be really, really close and like just unload your quote unquote rockets into them. But as the game's played, it seems like every single missile has like the same tracking speed, the same speed. The difference is the damage. So a size 1 will do more damage than a size 2 will do more size 1 stuff like that. Yeah.
But the problem is that with missiles, every patch there's like an iteration of hit or miss, meaning that as the flight model gets adjusted, one patch the missiles are really like overpowered and people have trouble with them, and the next patch comes out, they make a change, and then missiles are just like missiles. That's funny. So it's really odd that how dependent the missiles are on the flight model itself, or the mechanics and the things that they change every single patch. From like 2.6 to like 2.6.1, there's been because they increased the acceleration on the ships, including lateral and things like that. I found that missiles now, for the most part, are easy to avoid. In fact, since 2.6.1 and 2.6.2 came out, I don't think I've landed a single missile on any target that I fired a missile at. I just watch the missiles just kind of like trail along. The AI ship just kind of like goes around it, and then that's the end of it.
He knows some maneuvers.
And that's the thing, is that but in 2.6, missiles, you fire them and you would just destroy the AI. It was very, very effective. So the difference we have between 2.6 and the 2.6.1 is quite eye-opening. I've been looking at this. Now, I like to refer to things like this as hidden stats. I mean, you can label on a ship like how many guns something has, how many missiles they have, and things that I call hidden stats are things like cockpit visibility and weapon spread. That's an example. So, like, good example, the Buccaneer is a really good example of hidden stats. Now, right now, currently in the persistent universe, because I have enough repeaters to choke a camel, I've got 2 size 1s, 2 size 2s, and 2 size 3 repeaters on my Buccaneer. And because the 2 size 1s are in the very, very tippy tip of the wings, and the 2 size 2s, of course, are on that gimbal mount, and the 2 size 3s are underneath the wings, it's got a really, really wide kind of spread. And I went with the repeaters because, honestly, most of the shots you take, I tried a single kind of shot, like the tarantula style with the Buccaneer, and most of the shots would kind of go around the target. It was a big waste of ammo. And so I went with the repeaters because I just decided to treat it like the whole ship like a giant shotgun. Just things everywhere because it was just this is widespread. And so you have these guns and the wingtips that a lot of times in combat end up completely just being useless. They completely shoot around it. And in the Buccaneers case, even more so because they're already size 1s, and those people who are using IM and gimbals can't even access them. So they really become even less useful in that circumstance. But you look at ships. I've always wondered there's some questionable design choices, in my opinion, like the Hornet. The guns on the outside of the wings, to me, it's like those should be like on the body, and the missiles should be out on the wings and things like that. You want to keep that's always kind of I've always seen that as kind of being one of the best places for missiles to go in games.
Oh, wow. It's funny you mentioned that because in the original Hornet, I believe they had locked the missiles up in your little intake scoop. So you had this little bay thing that flipped open and your missiles would fire from that. When in reality, it should be more like F-14 style. Close up that bottom thing. I'm sure we've talked about this before. Yeah. And then have your missile protected internally and kind of like bomb bay style where they open
like
up.
A saber.
What they would have, I guess, and they would kick out down away from it, and then they would, activate and launch. And there's plenty of other ships that suffer this thing too, like the Retaliator, for example. That I believe is supposed to have internal missiles. I don't have the specs in front of me. Yeah. I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure that was supposed to have internal missiles. Yeah, to launch out of the body.
Yeah, and that's an odd thing too. Okay. Going back to what I was talking about with the pod, the Buccaneer, this example can kind of also be found if you go back and you look at the Vanguard, the original Vanguard. It showed that there was like these little, and it was based off of the Redeemer design, where basically these doors would come up on the top from the space between the body and the engine, and the missiles were actually housed in there, and it would fire the missiles. The missiles were protected; they were underneath armor, they were kept internal. And then when you wanted to fire the missiles, boop, doors come open, missiles come out, and then, doors would close. And of course, they said what they did is they just strapped the missiles onto, on the belly of it, on the basically pretty much identically to the way they did it in the Buccaneer, between the hull, between the main body and the engine on the underside of basically the wing. And now
the Hornet.
Yeah, and what's kind of when I look at this and I'm like, but that they can do it because we have these missile racks like this on the Connie.
And the bomber, the Gladiator?
The Gladiator's got internals as well, yeah. Yep. And so, to me, I keep looking at this and I'm wondering, when you buy a ship, I understand that things change in concept, but there's a lot of character that gets lost when you you go from this really nice looking system, this really intricate, well done system to this cut and paste taped on.
You just glue it onto the bottom like you're making a model. You don't
yeah, it's like
it's internally and go, look how nice this is. You're just like, fuck it, we're just gonna glue it on.
Well, that's a perfect example. It's like when I was a kid and I was making model airplanes and stuff, right? So I would break a piece and then I guess I can just attach it here and then I won't do this other thing over here and I'll just put these like this and then look fine. And that's kind of what it's like, I broke the model. I guess we'll just go ahead and strap the missiles onto the belly, So it does have that kind of ramshackle kind of feeling, like when I was putting together models and messing it up horribly. But what concerns me is that I'm as I said, I own a reclaimer, not reclaimer yet too, but a Redeemer, and I got just too many ships with the word R.
You have too many ships, dude.
Well, that too, but there's too many ships with the letter R in it. Okay,
there is that too.
Okay, so anyway,
Retaliator, Redeemer, Revenger,
Revengeinator,
Revengeance.
That's
Metal Gear Solid.
So the Redeemer, of course, the man who designed the Redeemer and won the contest, he's no longer with CIG. So this is going to be put into the hands of fill in the blank to actually go ahead and get the ship and the engine.
It's going to be put into the hands of incredibly lazy developers who just don't give a shit. They don't have the same passion.
Well, that's the weird thing. You have these two sides. You have these developers, I feel that and then once again, not trying to rip on people in CIG because they have some people who are extremely passionate and they're extremely very, very good at what they do. And then you seem to have this other group of people are just like,
Yeah, it's just a job to them.
And it's clear because you have it's like when
we don't like working on game controls.
Oh yeah, well that's kind of your job, isn't it? So yeah, it's that kind of thing. You have the the Tony Z who comes in and can just you just listen to him because he practically paints a picture, and you can see what he's talking, and then they implement it, and things come out you've never even thought they were going to do, and then
you have Ben Lesnick and Disco Lando.
Oh, yeah, Disco Lando has been, he's been
going downhill fast.
Yeah, he's actually poking fun now at the people discussing the whole gimbal issue.
Not to mention getting questions wrong.
Yes, completely changing the words.
Gimbals for a while. Just forget about gimbals.
Yeah, Ben had changed one too.
When someone asks a question, they have the subscriber questions or whatever, and they say, let's just make up a question. And they say, I'm curious how joysticks are going to handle with, large ships. And then they come out and say, joysticks will work great for large ships. That's not the question. That's just saying something.
That's pretty apt. And in fact, someone had actually written, and Ben posted in the forums, and I hope I have that, can find the image or whatnot. If I don't, I do apologize. But someone had asked a very clean question about the issues, and Ben came back with the most nonsensical answer. I mean, it was like saying, hey, what's 2 + 2? And then Ben comes back with pony. Okay, like what? What is that? What? Yeah, and this is the problem I have is, like, well, the last 2 streams that Disco Lando has been on, he has openly mocked the people's concerns that have been talking about the situation.
The people that are
the backers. He openly mocked them, and I have a real issue with that. Like the last one with the when he did the privateer one, he was actually holding up this thing. We talking about how that. The problem, their system creates a bad meta game at the top. This is one of the things that we've been talking about, because you end up like, okay, all the stick people fly this kind of gun with fixed because that's the only thing that competes damage wise.
It's the best.
Yeah,
there's no variance.
And then there was a strategy guide written for Privateer way back in the day, and someone was comparing how much the highest cost per damage, or like the most dollars per damage, which is not the same thing. Dollars per damage on a weapon cost isn't the same as comparing damage between weapons. Dollars per damage.
It'd be a DPS thing.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, how much does this cost? How much does this weapon cost? And how much damage does it do? It's not the same thing as how much does this weapon do versus this weapon. It's not the same thing.
If you had a weapon that it fired 20 times a second and did 400 damage per shot, and there was no other weapon that did anywhere close to 400 damage per shot, that's a meta. That'd be the best weapon. No one would use any other weapon than that weapon.
Well, he was reading the strategy guide someone put out and talked about the price and the damage, and he goes, and he holds up this book, and he has it open and goes, hey, look, even back then they were talking about they were metagaming. And I'm like, dude, that isn't metagaming. That's a guy talking about the dollars per cost of damage. I mean, like basically
that'd be like, I only have X amount of money. What's the best use I can get out of the limited funds to do the most amount of damage?
Yeah,
so
but he kept
at that and go, okay, I need Badger repeaters because they're the most cost effective for damage.
Exactly. He kept holding the book up during the thing like several times and held it up in front of this like towards the camera. I'm like, dude, you have missed every argument and have been completely disconnected from what everyone has been saying. You and Ben should just become roommates or something, because
they're probably the worst community managers ever.
Yeah,
and that's their official job title.
I would rather they would just ignore us than insult us, because they're not even addressing the issue. They, as I said, they look at the issue. We talk about the issue. We lay out the facts. The fact that in the industry they've never been able to blend these methods before. And that's why you have console players don't play with PC players, and this is why War Thunder has sim versus arcade and so on and so on.
Go.
This is what
there are games that if you're caught using a mouse like on your PS4, you will be banned from these games. Well, and it's not, and the thing is, once again, it's not even mouse, it's control interface ergonomics. It's first order versus serial order, and that's the issue. You have to decide, because you have to design these things so that they all work the same way, and otherwise you end up with 2 different games. And so basically, this is the thing. We've laid it out for them. We showed how it has never been able to be blended in anywhere in the industry, and how they basically, because they're trying to blend 2 mechanics, they said they're trying to get game pads to now work with the FPS portion of the game. Now, any of you listening right now would probably chuckle at that thought. I mean, anyone comes at you with a game pad in the FPS portion of this game, you already know that you game.
In a PC game, you know that you're gonna kick their face in. It's not even going to be a contest. And so that's the same issue we're dealing with in the other direction, because
it's like I when I'm playing GTA, and
right.
I like to play with the console. It's easier.
That's a perfect example. You can use the gamepad in GTA, or you can use the. I always use the mouse for shooting because
the thing
it's deadly accurate.
It's way easier to drive.
Way easier to drive with the gamepad. That's
you have finer controls. You can move them a certain direction. It's a percentage of a left turn, not just 100% left turn. So driving is massively easier. But when it comes to gunnery, the first person combat and stuff, I have gotten pretty good at shooting in GTA with the controller because I've used it a lot. But Jarvis, when he's playing, he always uses the mouse, and he will always outshoot me because he's using the mouse, which has got perfect pixel.
And when I'm driving like ass because I'm using the keyboard when I'm trying to shoot the car.
Just stop driving, dude. Just let me drive.
I
hate riding shotgun with you, and I mean, I don't know how much better of a driver I am than you, but when you're like, I'm much worse. The keyboard, it's like, stop, get out.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But that's the thing, though, is that so it's a matter of these ergonomics and how they're implemented. But so they come in, and this has been going on in the last several streams, and of course the on Spectrum, the hottest, the topics with the most votes up are the ones dealing with these issues, and other than the Chinese language or Asian language,
things translated, it's nice and it's important, but
but everything that's not like some sort of language. Hey, request for language or servers in this country, vote up here or something. Yeah. Outside of that, everything else is about this issue, and so but it's as I said, I'd rather they would just ignore the whole situation than come in and openly mock, because these people, these aren't people that are looking to make the game worse. We're looking to make the game fantastic. We want the game to be deep and meaningful, and everyone to play in the same playing field and have fun and be a good community, and specialize and want ships to fly all handled differently and do different things. One of the big thrills that I love in World War II games is how a
Spitfire doesn't fly the same.
Like a BF-109.
BF-109.
They don't handle the same, and I don't expect them to. And right now, for the most part, a lot of the ships they handle the same. There may be some differences in speed or whatnot, but for the most part, everything is kind of like spin, face your target, point, get your crosshair, and both fire at each other, and then kind of slide around to try to dodge each other's incoming fire. There's not a lot of depth in that. And so, that's because, if you think back to 2.6, they had the accelerations were changed, and everything was reduced, and no one could dodge gimbal fire anymore. So they had to do 2.6.1, 2.6.2, which is once again going back to what we talked about, why the missiles were something now useless, because they had to massively increase those accelerations so people could dodge the gimbals again. So right there, the interactive mode system, that zero order aiming device, because of its existence, they had to modify the whole flight mechanic. They had to go in, and when you have a mechanic,
when Chris Roberts himself is coming down here and saying it's too fast, slow it
down,
fast,
and then they start they're going to slowly start bringing it back up, because they have a mechanic which, when they bring it down to the pacing that he wants, it's so dead on accurate, so fast, so twitchy, that they have to actually then raise it back up in order to have it not dominate. And
then you're back up into the
and you're back where you started.
Spending $100 on a high-end joystick that's super accurate to keep up with the mouse I have on my desk. It's like a $20 mouse.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that there's been some people, I think it was Galoith.
Even that much.
I think
Galoith said a $5 mouse.
Well, I think Galoith said he's broken 9 sticks trying to play.
You shouldn't even have to break one.
No, I've never broken a stick in my life. So he's a very hardcore into the PvP, and he's broken 9 sticks, good sticks, trying to competing in that, and that shows you there's a serious problem with the ergonomics of the whole situation. So we went off on a tangent again on that. It seems like
we did. Because we're talking about the IM thing again.
Well,
it's not IM. It's a lot of different things.
It's a lot of different factors, but there's a lot of depth to this. There's a lot of situations going on with this, and as I said, it's also hidden stats. If you're stick fixed and you're flying a Hornet, the weapon spread on those wings is pretty wide, and so even if you have bigger guns, you've got to deal with that spread. But if you're IM, the weapons are going to converge. So that spread, where those weapons are located, isn't a big of a deal for you. And this is so. it's not only the weapon sizes, it's the layout of the weapons, it's how they interact with
Anyway,
what's
folks,
controlling the
that's
weapons.
it for the BlastCast.
Oh,
see
no.
you next week.
Yeah, I'll see you next week. I wish we'll have, hopefully there'll be more news. We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
That's my line. Oh, actually, it's your line.
No, it's my line.